Could you tell us about mothers in your life?
Yes, I've been very fortunate to have two wonderful, wonderful mothers. My first mother was big and jolly, and she loved all animals, wild including reptiles and birds and insects. And she gave me a respect for things like that and not taking wild animals home and keeping them because they belong in their natural habitat and they all had jobs to do. She died when I was in second grade on Valentine's Day. She was 38 and I was almost 8. She died of a stroke. And my brother was 2 years younger. That summer, Dad was working this particular day. It was a late afternoon. My brother Larry was out playing somewhere, and I decided that I really needed to wash my hair because it was very greasy. So I went upstairs in our 2-story house. We had a bathroom up there, and the sink had these faucets, separate, hot and cold. I didn't know anything about shampoo, so I brought up a box of laundry detergent called Duz, D-U-Z. And somehow I got my hair wet, and then I just tipped the box of Duz on my head. I must have had about 2 cups of Duz. And then I added more water, and it made more suds, and I started getting suds everywhere, and it got into my eyes too, and I was getting a little bit anxious, so I put on more water, and that just made more suds, and I thought I'm going to suffocate in all this suds, and it was stinging my eyes, and I suddenly felt very much orphaned, and I started to cry, and I thought, nobody will find me until I'm dead. And I felt so sorry for myself. And then I heard this woman's voice downstairs. Hello, anybody home? And I called out, and she came up, and it was Mrs. Helga Larson, Larson, from across the street. And she had brought some food over for us. And when she saw me and recognized my plight, she was very quick to rinse me and rinse me and rinse me until the water ran clear. And then she toweled my hair dry, and I was good to go. I will never forget her kindness, and that she appeared right at the moment of my greatest need. And I still think of her with gratitude. Now I want to tell you about back then. All little girls in the winter had to wear garter belts, which were complicated harnesses, kind of like parachute harnesses, but no parachute. Instead, there were these 2 garters in front and 2 in back, and then you'd pull up the brown stockings and hitch them to the garters and go off to school, because girls only wore dresses. And then we had underpants called snuggies that went down to the top of the stocking, so there was no bare skin. But it was very cumbersome and not very cute, these brown ribbed stockings. And in the spring, all the mothers, and in my case it was probably a housekeeper, they decided which day was warm enough for their daughters to ditch the garter belt and the brown stockings and wear anklets. I remember that so vividly. I think this must have been 3rd grade. When we went out for recess, I remember walking and feeling the swish of my petticoat against my thighs, and it was delicious. And then we went out and played on the school playground, and around the edge was grass and dirt, in the middle was gravel. And we girls knelt down on the dirt and the dead grass. But I remember the warmth of the sun-warmed earth penetrating my knees and just going up through my whole body, making me feel so warm and so happy that spring was on the way. That's the end of that story.